The finale of Murder Mindfully Season 2 finally reveals the terrifying truth about Bjorn. He was never using mindfulness to become a better person. He was using it to become a more efficient killer. Throughout the season, the show constantly balanced dark comedy with psychological horror, making Bjorn seem almost absurdly calm while chaos exploded around him. But the ending strips away any illusion that he's simply a stressed man trying to survive impossible circumstances. By the final scene, Bjorn has evolved into someone far more dangerous, a man who can justify absolutely anything to himself as long as it protects his inner peace. Kurt enters the finale still half believing Bjorn might actually help him escape. That's what makes the opening conversation so unsettling. Bjorn speaks with such calm precision about fake identities, retirement on the Côte d'Azur, and financial paperwork that the plan almost sounds compassionate. He frames himself like a problem solver, offering Kurt freedom from the violence around him. But the key moment comes when Kurt realizes the Holgersons didn't cause the warehouse fire. That detail destroys Bjorn's entire story. Suddenly, Kurt understands that Bjorn has been orchestrating nearly everything from behind the scenes. The offer of escape was never real, the coffee wasn't hospitality, it was poison. And that realization perfectly captures what makes Bjorn so dangerous. He hides brutality beneath politeness. Even when planning murder, he still behaves like a calm professional host serving espresso. The basement confrontation is the true climax of the season because it forces every character to reveal who they really are. Kurt is driven by paranoia and humiliation, Boris is driven by cruelty and domination, and Bjorn is driven by control. Boris immediately weaponizes psychological torture because that's who he is at his core. Instead of begging for survival, he attacks Kurt emotionally, humiliating him about the prostitute he loved and reopening years of insecurity. Boris understands that emotional pain often wounds people more deeply than physical violence. Kurt, meanwhile, completely unravels because deep down he already believes Boris's insults are true. And Bjorn just watches. That's the most disturbing part of the entire scene. Even while pretending to panic, Bjorn is still calculating. He keeps delaying because he's waiting for the exact moment when both men become weak enough for his real plan to work. At first, Bjorn's trap almost sounds philosophical. Two chained men, each holding the key to the other's freedom, forced to choose between trust or murder. It resembles some twisted mindfulness exercise about cooperation and human nature. But the ending reveals the truth. There was never any actual game. Bjorn already decided both men would die. The chained setup is simply psychological theater designed to make Bjorn feel morally detached from the outcome. Instead of directly executing them, he creates a scenario where they emotionally destroy each other first. That distinction matters enormously to Bjorn. He constantly reframes his crimes as systems, processes, or exercises rather than personal acts of violence. By leaving Kurt and Boris trapped together, he convinces himself he's merely letting events unfold naturally. Then he quietly breaks up the basement anyway. That moment exposes the horrifying core of his personality. Bjorn uses mindfulness language to erase guilt from his actions. The genius of Bjorn's framing strategy is that it transforms Kurt into the perfect villain for the police narrative. Everything fits neatly. Failed business, debt, warehouse fire, murders, and emotional instability. Bjorn understands something crucial about investigations. People believe stories that already emotionally make sense to them. Kurt looks exactly like the kind of desperate man who would snap violently under pressure. So even if pieces of evidence feel strange, the overall narrative feels believable enough for authorities to accept. Meanwhile, Boris disappears entirely into myth. By inventing the story about Boris stealing the Golden Child statue and fleeing forever, Bjorn essentially turns Boris into a ghost, someone impossible to verify, track, or prosecute. Bjorn doesn't just kill people physically. He controls the story afterward, and that narrative control is what truly protects him. Detective Nicole becomes incredibly important in the ending because she represents the one remaining crack in Bjorn's perfect facade. And like everyone else, she senses something is wrong. The severed ear, the inconsistencies, and the Austrian waiter case. Individually, none of those details are enough to expose Bjorn, but together they create unease. Nicole instinctively recognizes that reality doesn't fit together as cleanly as the official story suggests. That's why Bjorn immediately shifts into manipulation mode around her, complimenting her intelligence, calmly redirecting conversations, offering logical explanations, and appearing cooperative. Bjorn survives because he understands people emotionally, not because he's physically powerful. He constantly studies what others need psychologically and adapts himself accordingly. The most important moment in the finale is not a murder, it's Katarina lying for Bjorn. On the surface, the scene seems simple. She gives him an alibi for the Austrian waiter incident, but emotionally it completely transforms Bjorn internally. For the first time, someone who likely suspects he's guilty still chooses him anyway. That matters because Bjorn's entire psychological identity revolves around emotional abandonment and disconnection. Deep down, he sees himself as someone fundamentally alone, someone who survives only by controlling situations before others can reject or expose him. Katarina's protection breaks that pattern. In Bjorn's mind, she's not just helping him legally, she's validating him emotionally. That's why he describes it as healing his inner child. But the scene is deeply disturbing because it shows how Bjorn interprets love, not as accountability, honesty, or morality, but as unconditional protection regardless of wrongdoing. The final therapy scene completely reframes the entire show. When Joschka Breitner asks how Bjorn and his inner child are doing, Bjorn calmly says they're fine now. He describes the season's chaos almost casually, as though everything was simply stressful problem-solving. That's the horrifying joke at the center of Murder Mindfully. Bjorn genuinely believes he has grown emotionally healthier. But in reality, mindfulness never made him more compassionate. It simply made him calmer while committing atrocities. He learned emotional detachment, breathing through stress, and staying composed under pressure. Those are valuable tools for healing, but in the hands of someone like Bjorn, they become tools for becoming a better predator. That's why the lullaby Hush Little Baby playing over the ending feels so sinister. The song sounds soothing and comforting while we watch the reality of what Bjorn has become. The series deliberately twists the language of self-help into something terrifying. Did Bjorn actually change? Yes, but not morally. That's the key point. At the start of the series, Bjorn was chaotic, anxious, reactive, and constantly overwhelmed by violence. By the finale, he's become composed, strategic, emotionally regulated, and patient. He really did improve himself, just in the worst possible direction. The tragedy of the ending is that Bjorn mistakes emotional calmness for moral growth because he no longer feels panic or guilt intensely. He convinces himself his actions are reasonable. In his mind, the season ends successfully, enemies eliminated, police misled, family protected, inner child healed, and mindfulness mastered. And that final realization is what makes the ending so chilling. Bjorn is no longer a man struggling with darkness. He's a man who has fully integrated darkness into a peaceful daily routine.